And you've just heard Undertone, the opening track from Tales of the Amplified, the new album by Black Cat Bone. And I'm joined now by Ross Craig from the band. Hello, Ross.
Hello, everyone. How we doing? How we doing, Alistair?
I'm really well, thanks. And I'm really enjoying the album and playing it a lot, particularly over the last week. What can you tell us about it and the songs on it?
Well, I think it's it's a bit different than most normal albums that have been coming out in Scotland anyway. It's very sort of driven, sort of rock and blues. We've kind of got our own spin on it as well, which sort of makes the tracks, each one sort of unique. Generally, the feel of the album's kind of, I think it was just it's just us, you know what I mean? There is some slower songs, there is some faster songs, there's some dirty songs, and there's some sort of cleaner songs. So we're kind of across the board, basically try to cover all the sort of different sort of tempos and things like that. But at the same time, we sound like Black Cat Bone. We sound like us.
I would say that's exactly right. Every track sounds like Black Cat Bone, whether you're slowing it down to a more kind of R&B, a more blues feel, or, whether it's a full-on rock number, it absolutely sounds like the band. So before we go into further detail on the album, what's the history of Black Cat Bone? Because you've been around for a wee while.
Yeah, we started out about 10 years ago, and it all started from me just taking my wee harmonica, just went to the open mic and jam nights, and I was just jamming and playing with different musicians, meeting friends, meeting new friends, and it just kind of grew onto that scene, and we done a few sort of met the core of the band a wee while ago. And then we've had a few lineup changes since then. So then we started to sort of take it a bit more seriously, and we started to actually play venues and the sort of club scenes. And then we added the drums and the bass, which then obviously thickened everything out and made it a bit sort of how it sounds today. So yeah, that's sort of where we've sort of started and come from. Yeah.
And are you the constant in it over all those changes?
Yeah, I've been in it. Yeah. I've been through many different lineups and stuff, but yeah, I've always been.
And that's interesting, starting just going to open mic nights with your harmonica. That's quite a romantic ideal, actually. Where people coming, you just met people, like-minded folk that you wanted to make music with.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. Just the more and more I play, I didn't even want to be the singer. I wasn't planning on it. Just happened that way, and then when I got people together, we were looking for a singer, and then I tried it, and everyone was like, but you can just do the singing. So and then it kind of just kept going from there, and it sort of blossomed. But yeah, I've always been in the band. I was the one that kind of started it, and yeah, I'll hopefully be there to finish it.
Am I right in saying this is your second album? I remember an album from 2014-15. Was it Growl?
Growl, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's when we recorded, when we had the cajon. We didn't have the drums, and that was a bit more stripped back. We're sort of a bit more bluesy, sort of rootsy blues, to what we are now.
Yeah, because this has got a really full sound on it,
Exactly.
Absolutely. There's keys and there's big drums and all sorts of things going on.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like a classic rock record, and I'm interested in your influences, because I'm interested to see whether they're things that I've maybe heard in it or I haven't, So what would you say has kind of influenced this album in particular?
Well, I mean, because all of us are all different, we all kind of like this different things. I mean, me myself, I've always been into the sort of really the core of the blues, like the Howlin' Wolves, your Muddy Waters. I like Nick Cave. I like Tom Waits. I like Iggy Pop, all that kind of sort of thing. And then my drummer Kai, he's sort of into Black Rebel, Queens of Stone Age, a bit more sort of post rock sort of stuff. And then the bassist Ewan, he's into a bit more grungy, so he's like Nirvana, and all that kind of scene. And then the guitarist is he loves Rory Gallagher, and all that kind of sort of thing. So, but all together, you sort of mix that in a pot together, and it does kind of get all the feels from the different influences from each band member, I think.
I think that's really interesting. Listening to it over again, I feel there's a kind of Southern rock feel to it, a Southern American rock, maybe from the 70s. And it's interesting, I think that's maybe come together because you've got all these different influences going. But I'm thinking bands like the Black Crowes and Little Feat. I think a lot of that's to do with the keyboards being involved in it as well.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that, you know, you all bring in these different influences, and what you get from the other side is something that's very much, as you say, quite different to what a lot of what's going on in Scotland, at least.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that the way that we write music is that's how we like. I don't think it's ever one person's writing a song coming to the rehearsal studio. Well, we've got this. We kind of work more on play this sort of like the groove and just keep it going. And then we all pitch in and write the songs together in the rehearsal room. It does take like a lot longer, you know, and there's always arguments and all that kind of stuff going on about which part's this and that. But at the end of it, then we feel like when we're playing it, it's all four of us have had a part of the song, you know, and all the whole record, and it just makes it a bit more special, you know, because that wouldn't have happened if it's just one person sitting writing a song. But yeah, so four minds is
So
better than one.
that's really interesting, and so everyone feels invested in every song because they've got at least the chance to put in their input.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I take care of most of the lyric side of things. I mean, the boys will chip in every now and then with some stuff, but yeah, generally I'll work on the lyrics probably away from the rehearsal studio, but the melodies and stuff will come from the rehearsals.
And that story about you going and doing open mics is interesting, because I think, to me, these are songs that are kind of screaming to be heard live. So there's a real kind of live ethos behind the band, I take it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's our sort of trouble. I mean, we've always felt like our live sound is like so big, and it's like so people really enjoy it, and that's basically what the band's about. And then recording that is sometimes difficult. So when we went into the studio, we were kind of thinking how we're going to get around this, because we want it to sound live, but we also want it to be, you know, like nice to listen to, and you know, not have all the parts jump out. And it just worked perfect the way that we did it. I mean, we actually didn't record live. We sort of recorded each part, but the drums and the bass were live. But then obviously Owen's done his magical treatment on it as well, which makes it sound like it's like a stadium or something. I don't know, like the vocals especially sounds like,
Yeah.
you know.
That's
So
the other thing, I think, when I was listening to it. This sounds not only like a band that have been playing together for a long time, but also this could, it's almost, you know, live at Altamont or something like that, you know, like a big
yeah,
not stadium gig, but a big outdoor gig, that kind of feel to it.
yeah, it has that feel. Yeah, definitely.
And that's interesting the way you say you recorded, because I've spoken to a few people who are in bands over the years, and there's always kind of searching, one, for different ways of doing it and for the right way, and maybe there is no right or wrong way. So,
That's
you know,
it.
people that have made a lot of records have gone, well, this time we did everything individually, absolutely individually, and then put it all together. This other time we played as if we were live, we were all in the studio and we were all just jamming basically, and that came
Yeah.
out. So is that what you found, is that you're constantly evolving and finding new ways to record?
Yeah, basically. I mean, I think that the initial idea was we were going to go in and we were going to record everything live. And when we were there, I'm just so glad that we didn't, because when you do everything live, if you one person in the five of us make a mistake, then we got to go and do the whole thing again. So it could go on and on forever. And then obviously studio time is precious. So,
Yeah.
you know, and then as soon as you start thinking about that clock, that dreaded clock, time just vanishes, you know, like literally just goes. So yeah, I think that the way that we did it was quite smart. You know, we still got the drums and the bass live, and then once that was done, it was like we could just add on everything extra from there. So we still have that sort of live sound, but it's a bit more controlled, you know.
I
And
think
we
that's something that most people who listen to music won't even think about, is one, the kind of economics of it, and having that clock ticking down on, guys, we've only got this space for another 24 hours or whatever it might be. But I mean, that's going to be, as you say, very precious to use that time well.
yeah, exactly, that's it. And it does get stressful, you know. Yeah. Well, we were quite lucky because like our engineer, he would go on late some nights, so that was good as well. But we also just took the week out and we stayed all together in the nights. So we were like writing songs and writing parts and things like that in the night time, and then going in the morning, not so fresh, but you know, we were generally, yeah, we were together for the whole week. So it definitely made like a big difference, you know, rather than just doing studio time and then we all separate and then go back the next day. We would kind of try to keep together.
So it was really like a proper band camp. You were there, you were going.
Basically, yeah. I mean, we went to there was definitely a few pub visits that week after, but yeah, we stayed in the same flat together. We just kind of spent the whole time together, which is good.
And in terms of that recording process, is it an enjoyable one? Is it a stressful one? Is it a bit of everything?
Probably a bit of everything. I mean, sometimes it's like really enjoyable because the studio, you've got so many options. That's the problem. And well, we're not engineers, so we don't know all the different options that there is available. But I mean, once we had got the initial sound and all the guitar tones and everything sorted out, it was like, oh, it was quite relaxing and we're kind of playing. So I wouldn't say it was stressful. No, I think we were just because we were well rehearsed before.
Yeah.
We went to like sort of call it a cottage retreat just up in Scotland, probably about, I think it was like the end of last summer. And we took like 4 days, again, just the four of us away from distraction of everyday life. And that's where like we kind of got the songs made and properly developed. So when we came back, we were just hitting the rehearsal studio constantly. So when it came to studio time, the songs were all pretty much done, you know. So
and it's that idea of getting away from just kind of everyday life to just concentrate on the music, is that a kind of I noticed that to me it seems something that's happening more and more, that bands or even just individual musicians are finding places, often rural places, to go and almost clear their head. Writers do it as well a lot now.
Yeah, yeah, of course, yeah.
Like that. Is that what you found? Is that a really helpful thing?
Oh yeah, I think so. I think just having four of us together for like I say 3 or 4 days, it was perfect. It's like not just like we're always practicing every week and things like that, but the practice time again is only like 4 or 5 hours, where a getaway you're together the whole time. And although you're not playing all the time, you're talking about things, you know, and then things are moving on, and it's just generally it's good for bonding, I think, especially for a band. And you come back just hopefully if you all get on, that's I mean, you might hate it.
I suppose it's a test. It's a test
exactly.
That way as well, definitely. And the record's released with Asai Records. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We were lucky to get Asai on board. They're just like sort of just concentrating on distributing the vinyl off the record. But that got postponed. It was meant to go with the release on Friday there, but it got postponed. So that's going to be the night before our gig at Labelle on the 5th of April. So they're going to release the vinyl and the CDs and everything there. So again, it just kind of builds it up again. It doesn't means that the album's not just stopped right there, you know, it's got something to concentrate on. And
well, that's interesting. I was going to ask you about how you approach releasing an album, you know, the kind of process and the mindset. It's one thing, I suppose, recording it. The next step is getting it out there and all of the kind of other stuff you have to do. What is the approach for you with that?
Sitting on the computer, taking time out there and be ready to not get spoken to by a lot of people that you send emails to. But no, generally, I mean, again, we had built up a wee bit of a following already. So like we're quite lucky in that perspective where people know us and sort of will click on our music when we've got something new happening. But generally, like, yeah, I mean, you just got to just go for it, you know. There's so many different options and so many different ways to go. It's just try to do what you can, basically, you know.
And I guess you say, you know, having that follow-up release on vinyl and CD with Asai, that does mean that there's a tension, because I guess the worry is, I mean, I know how much new music gets released all the time.
Well,
it's astonishing. Really good new music. So I guess, you know, that means it's not just being, well, this has been released and then people move on to the next thing. There's live gigs, there's, you know, actual physical releases and all of those things to kind of keep that momentum ticking over.
Exactly, yeah. And I've got quite a few things going on in the next few months. Well, obviously the vinyl sale, then we've got the Labelle gig in Edinburgh. And then we've just confirmed the Poetry Club in Glasgow for the 20th of April.
Brilliant.
And then we've got a couple in stores. They're just not confirmed, but Asai are going to do in stores, maybe possibly for Record Store Day. So that'd be good. And then we'll just play a set and sell the record there and things. So, I mean, that'll tick us over till like May time. And then hopefully we can get down south a bit, I think, maybe in the summer. And start doing it down, like touring down there as well.
Because as I say, these are songs that, you know, I just love to hear them live. That it seems to be, that's when it would really make sense. So the idea is to hopefully, if not tour, because I know how expensive the idea of a tour is these days.
Yeah, exactly.
At least play more gigs maybe through the summer.
Yeah, definitely. That's our sort of plan. I think we're going to try and hit like Sheffield, Manchester, that sort of little area, so we can do a run of maybe like 4 or 5 gigs in a row and just go down, do that, come back, rather than doing 3-week tours. That
Yeah.
there's no point. I mean, tours are all great, but when we've done it in the past, sometimes you're going down to these venues and that they don't know you, so it's like it's hard if you don't have the promotion behind you. It doesn't make sense. So
Yeah.
yeah, just see what happens, see what comes from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
The
think
main
these
thing is the
changes.
album.
Yeah, the main thing is the album, absolutely, and the songs
Yeah,
on. But I think it's really interesting how you have to adapt to kind of the way that you do things. I think for years and years it was the same. Release an album, tour an album. Maybe tour again on bigger venues if it's got a lot of traction, and then think about the next album. But I think all these things have changed, become condensed, become more fractured. You just have to think of different ways of doing it.
yeah, exactly. And it's not doesn't have to be all right now, because music
Yeah.
does have a time, so as long as you've got something that's constantly promoting it or doing something like to maybe pick out a few songs that like our album we could be promoting that for a wee while. We
Yeah.
don't have to be worried and being like, oh, everyone needs to listen to it on release week. It's like, no, we've got a long time, so just
Yeah. And I think especially when it sounds like such a kind of timeless classic anyway, it's the kind of album that's not gonna date. I don't think
yeah,
that's the way you feel
hopefully.
about it.
That's very kind.
You mentioned about building up a following. Now this might be a completely Spotify thing, but I did notice when I was first kind of putting songs on playlists that you seem to have a following in Hispanic countries.
I know,
Is
I know,
that a
especially.
surprise to you?
Exactly. I don't know. I have no idea why. We noticed that it's in Mexico and like Colombia,
In Chile and Spain
Chile.
itself.
Exactly.
It's so interesting because every now and again it comes up when you look at the little biogs of various bands on Spotify, which are really helpful to me sometimes to talk
Yeah.
about the bands
Brilliant.
like
Yeah.
that. But then it has top places listened, and it's more than often than not Glasgow, Edinburgh, London, whatever it might be. But for you, it is
I know
Santiago,
it's Santiago, I
Mexico
think it was.
City, and all this. I mean, wow.
Exactly.
So
I know, exactly. Hopefully, I
can
mean,
you
we
imagine
get over there.
that kind of music is popular in Southern America? But I just had this idea that actually you'd had a previous life touring.
Maybe or maybe because we aren't the only Black Cat Bone as well. This is another thing when we first
Ah,
started it. So there is other Black Cat Bones in the world. I don't know if some of them are going. I think most of them are finished. They were like older.
yeah.
We've discussed about changing the band name a few times, but we just never have.
Oh, so that's
But
probably
maybe it could be something that's like someone said, oh, actually this is different, but I like it, or
yeah. It was like a kind of super group from Peru. That,
maybe, yeah, exactly. You never know.
but let's talk about the name Black Cat Bone. Where does it come from?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously the like Muddy Waters and things like that, they used to reference it quite a lot. It generally comes from like the sort of hoodoo practitioners who, this is nothing to do with us, by the way, but it's just they would get like a black cat and they would boil it and then they would throw the bones in the river and the bone that would float to the top, that would be like the black cat bone that was supposed to like signify like magic and sort of make you have basically positive effects in all your life. So we thought like that just kind of, that's what we need. We need a lot of luck here if we were so yeah, so that's why the main sort of inspiration came from there. But we're not. Don't worry. Don't worry. We're not going around the neighborhood getting black cats.
No cats were harmed in the
No
making of this
cats are harmed.
album.
No, we're not trying it.
And I mean, you've mentioned those gigs which are coming up. Do you have definite plans yet, or are you just kind of seeing what's happening next?
Well, we've got the 2 album release parties yet. But apart
Just
from that,
remind us where that is again. You said LaBelle in Edinburgh and
yeah, LaBelle on the 6th of April, and then Poetry Club on the 20th of April.
right.
Don't have any other plans really. Just going to see how it goes. I mean, to be honest, I've put all our energy into the album, trying to get it promoted and things like that. And we are just us, we don't have a manager or we've
Yeah.
not got bookers or press people. So that's probably what we'll focus on next, is now that the album's out, now we can start working on trying to sort of tour out or, plug
Yeah.
onto some festivals and things like that. So yeah.
Well, Ross, I said to you before we started recording, I think it's a terrific album, and listen to it loads. It does sound fresh because although I can hear influences, it's influence I haven't heard contemporarily for a while. So it does sound like something new in that sense. Classic but brand new, which I guess was what you're after.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I'll keep that quote, that one.
Well, thanks very much for taking the time to talk to me. I really do appreciate it.
No bother. Thanks very much for having me. Thank you.
And this is Black Cat Bone and Let It Breathe.